friendship is special, almost perfect. Two people who love each other's company. Life sucks for the most part, but there are times you meet someone, anyone, a man or a woman. You get along. You like to be together. You like talking to each other. Zorba is a force of earth, raw, honest. The narrator is a force of spirit, thinking, quiet, silence, listening. I was happy, I knew that. While experiencing happiness, we have difficulty in being conscious of it. Only when the happiness is past and we look back on it do we suddenly realize, sometimes with astonishment, how happy we had been. Hey everyone, today I'm in Greece and I'll talk about one of the best novels of modern Greek. Zorba the Greek by Nikos Kazantzakis was published in 1946 and translated to English in 1952 by Carl Wildman. The novel was made into a very successful movie in 1964 starring Anthony Quinn. So in this video I'll summarize it for you and then discuss its writing, themes and philosophies. At the end I'll tell you how to live your life like Zorba. If you are an intellectual and thinking type, like I am, you will love to know someone like Zorba who doesn't think but just lives his life. Who is happier, a careful thinking person or someone who just lives his life without much thought? This novel might change the way you think about life. But first let me tell you about one of the greatest literary giants of modern Greece. Nikos Kazantzakis was born on the island of Crete, which at the time was under the Ottoman Turk rule. Later, as a young man, he studied in Paris in the famous Sorbonne University and was influenced by the philosopher Henri Bergson, who argued that to understand the world, you need intuition, rationality, and experience. Like many writers of the era, he was also heavily influenced by the philosophy of Nietzsche, and he even translated Thus Spoke Zarathustra, one of Nietzsche's books. As we will see, this novel was partly influenced by Nietzsche's critique of modern life. Nikos Kazantzakis also became interested in communism and later disillusioned by it because of the promise of freedom and the reality of repression of artistic freedom in the Soviet Union. Despite that, he held on to his view that democratic socialism was an ideal form of organizing a society. Some ideals are best not realized, I guess. As Proust says, a fulfilled love is a damaged one. A fulfilled utopia is no longer desirable. The same goes for his Nobel Prize. Several times he was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature, but he never won. Once he lost to none other than Albert Camus, who thought Kazantzakis deserved it more. I think that's more powerful than if he did win. On his epitaph engraved, "I hope for nothing, I fear nothing, I am free." Just like his philosophical ancestor Diogenes the Cynic, who didn't care what others thought of him because he was a free man. His work is often interpreted to incorporate a Greek identity of Eastern instinct and Western reason, or Eastern passion with Western rationality. This somewhat mirrors Bergson's philosophy of intuition infused with rationality, emotions with logic. He wrote his novels in Demotic Greek or Modern Standard Greek, unlike his contemporaries who mostly wrote in Katharavasa Greek, a more conservative language that preserved many terms from the ancient Greece. Kazantzakis was keen to make his writing accessible for everyone, but some criticized him for writing in a too much flowery language. His sequel to Homer's Odyssey is considered a masterpiece by some, but not so good by others. He died in 1957 in Germany. Today he is considered a giant of modern Greek literature. His image appeared on €10 coin in 2007. Okay, back to the novel. First thing you should know that it is partly based on a real person called George Zorbas, who since the publication of his novel has become known to a lot of people. The novel begins when the unnamed narrator notices that an old man is watching him in a cafe. The old man introduces himself as Zorba, a Greek born in Macedonia, an expert miner and a chef who also carries a santuri, a musical instrument which he only plays when he is in the mood. He immediately asks for a job. Zorba latches onto him and is employed on the spot to cook him chicken soup. The narrator finds his openness quite intriguing. They travel together to the island of Crete to run a mine on the island. They live together and spend evenings talking about all manners of things, from life, women, death, and many more. The narrator is also on a spiritual journey, delving between Buddhism and Dante, while Zorba manages the mine during the day and keeps him company at night. Zorba drinks wine and then asks profound questions, like why he can't keep away from women. Why a simple grape turns into wine and turns your head and makes everything wonderful. Despite these questions, Zorba is on Earth, in touch with realities, while the narrator is in the sky of his own thoughts. He writes to free himself as if something inside him has shackled him down. The more he writes, the lighter he becomes, the freer he becomes. Zorba sings and the narrator writes. Zorba is the intuitive man and the narrator is the rational and thoughtful man. Life goes on the island. Zorba is a man. By man he means free. Thus we have Zorba the Greek, a free people. He plays his santuri when he's in the mood. Freedom can't be forced, he says. The narrator is going through a spiritual journey as he spends most of his days contemplating and writing about his Buddhist experience of finding a void. Zorba, on the other hand, is engaged in the running of the mine and managing workers. But in the evening, he poses questions to the narrator, things that puzzle him. Women, for one. He cannot have enough of women. Death is another thing. Wine is his best friend. They sit and chat under the stars. Those long conversations are beautiful and incredibly deep and insightful about their friendship. Zorba also gets into sexual relationship with a woman. He then tries his luck with another woman. Midway through the novel, they get separated. The narrator finally sleeps with a widow, but the villagers finds out. Her admirer, a man from the village, creates an uproar and so the widow is murdered in broad daylight. Life goes on for the two friends, then their money runs out. The narrator decides his time is up on the islands. He leaves and they never see each other. They start writing each other long and friendly letters, but as luck would have it, they never meet again. At the end, the narrator receives a letter from Zorba's wife telling him of his death. His last wish was for the narrator to come and take his santuri as memento. Now I'll discuss some of the themes and the philosophy of this novel. Intuition versus reason. Zorba and the narrator seem the polar opposite of each other. Zorba is 65, but a practical man. He cooks, mines, and pursues women. The narrator is like 30 years younger, but Zorba calls him boss, who writes, contemplates, and spends hours alone under the star or watching the sea. Zorba dances with his body. The narrator dances with his brain. But when they come together, they seem like a perfect couple together. Their relationship is simple fascination with each other, purely intellectual and companionship. It feels as though each seeks something of each other that they lack themselves. They are happy together. Zorba loves women, many of them, often a bit too much. The narrator doesn't show much interest in women. Zorba says he's a man, that means he's free. He identifies himself as free. The friendship between these two men is so intense and so beautiful. Zorba is intuitive, spontaneous, who follows his inner instinct for the most part. The narrator is the rational man who is reserved, less talkative, and more measured. Zorba says, quote, "I've got a thick skull, boss. I don't grasp these things easily. If only you could dance all that you have just said, then I would understand." End quote. The irony is that Zorba is Macedonian, but the novel says he is the best Greek there is. We associate Greeks with a particular philosophy, namely the giants like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, who all promoted a rational, measured lifestyle and outlook. Kazantzakis and Zorba the Greek, in a way, is defying Greekness as an identity form. He also chose to write in a more vernacular Greek language, unlike his contemporaries who insisted on using a more classic version of Greek in their writings. But what the novel does beautifully is how it depicts change. Zorba is from a bygone era, a time of freedom. The narrator is a modern man, shy, tame, reserved. But they are fascinated with each other precisely because they represent different periods in history. It's almost like members of two different species meet, like a Neanderthal meeting a man, but without their assumptions or prejudices. I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but rather in how they live their lives. Zorba is nothing like a Neanderthal, but again, we don't know how they were anyway. Apollo versus Dionysius. Okay, let's talk about Nietzsche. Kazantzakis translated Nietzsche into Greek. If you're familiar with the philosophy of Nietzsche, the one thing he regrets the most about Western civilization or modernity in Europe is that it is too much Apollo at the expense of Dionysius. Apollo is the god of rationality. Dionysius is the god of passion. Zorba is the Dionysian and the narrator is Apollon. So in a sense, Kazantzakis is taking us back to pre-Socratic and pre-Christian Greece, where men like Zorba roamed the country. So he is saying that the rational and the emotional can live side by side. Modernity is leaning too much on the rational at the expense of pushing passion to the side. Rationality makes life more predictable with its medical science and technology, but it is passion and sensuality that give life energy and meaning. From a modern point of view, Zorba is problematic, especially his attitude towards women, but so is humanity. In a sense, the novel is saying you can't have the good without the bad. You can't get rid of the bad without getting rid of some of the good as well. Life is problematic. Here's a quote: "Every man has his folly, but the greatest folly of all is not to have one." So modernity is trying to remove our follies, remove our emotions, remove our passion, and remove our energy to replace it all with a machine-like rational human. Quote, "You have everything but one thing, madness. A man needs a little madness, or else he never dares cut the rope and be free." End quote. Writing. Zorba the Greek reminded me of another novel published a year earlier in 1945 and written not far from Greece. It is The Bridge on the Drina by Ivo Andrić. Both are beautiful novels about the passage of time and a sense of place. This is a really beautifully written novel. I found the description so vivid and so engaging that I couldn't put the book down. It's a full-length novel, but I sat down a whole day to read it. Of course, the narrative pushes you forward, but I found the words, the sentences, and the beautiful imagery mesmerizing. The life on the island of Crete is depicted so much precision that you feel you're there. The story flows like waves of water hitting the shore, smooth and musical. Here's an example about Zorba. He speaks and the world grows bigger. Occasionally, when words no longer suffice, he leaps up and dances. And when dancing no longer suffices, he places his santuri on his knees and plays. Here's another quote. "This is true happiness, to have no ambition and to work like a horse, as if you had every ambition. To live far from men, not to need them and yet to love them. To have the stars above and the land to your left and the sea to your right. And to realize of a sudden that in your heart, life has accomplished its final miracle and has become a fairy tale." And finally, another quote. "There are three kinds of men. Those who make it their aim, as they say, to live their lives, eat, drink, make love, grow rich and famous. Then come those who make it their aim not to live their own lives, but to concern themselves with the lives of all men. They feel that all men are one and they try to enlighten them, to love them as much as they can and do good to them. Finally, there are those who aim at living the life of the entire universe. Everything, men, animals, trees, stars, we're all one substance involved in the same terrible struggle. What struggle? Turning matter into spirit." When finished reading, you want to visit the island of Crete. You want to sit near water to smell the sea and hear dogs barking in the distant village. You want to sit on a rock and watch the waves and distant boats. Then you want to walk to their hut. You want to see them in flesh. You want to have the same kind of friendship they had. You want to find someone like Zorba. I'm sure there's an inn on the island of Crete named after Zorba. And I'm sure there are many people who think Zorba is still alive on the island. That's all because of the powerful writing. So beautiful, lyrical, and poetic. It feels as if you are there. Separation should be quick and painful, decisive, no lingering in life. Love and then leave. No going back and forth. That is Zorba's way. Death is forgetfulness. As long as someone remembers you, you're still alive. Someone who loves you. Love is stronger than death. That's the last message of this book. If there's any negative in the book, it is the female characters are not treated well. One is played around and the other one is beheaded by the villagers. Last words. Reading this book fills your heart with joy, the joy of sadness, the joy of beauty. Zorba is perhaps one of the greatest heroes or characters in literature. A man who lived life as it is, as it was. He said things as he felt. He followed his intuition, he followed his instinct, he loved and then forgot. The novel is a time capsule of a bygone man and his era. A man whom you fall in love with despite his many flaws, who also will break your heart. A story that will bring tears to your eyes. A man whose philosophy in life is to live it, not think about it. Experience the ugly as well as the good, but mainly live your life. Thank you for watching. I'm on a journey to read books and stories from every country on earth, so if you want to tag along, please subscribe, share and comment as it helps the channel.